Hello everyone, this is Miss Thomas, and today we are going to look at polynomial long division. So polynomial long division works much like regular good old-fashioned long division. So let's say that we had 382 divided by 5. What we would want to look at first is, okay, well the 5 doesn't go into the 3, but it does go into 38. And it's going to go into 38 7 times. So I then would take 7 times 5, write the product down below as 35. Now the other thing we need to do that we often forget about is we need to change the sign. We do subtraction here. So 38 minus 35 is going to give me a 3. Then I bring down the 2. So again, I'm going to think about, okay, well, 5 times 32, or 5 times what gives me 32? 5 times 6 is going to give me 32. And again, I'm going to take my 6 times my 7, my 6 times my 5, and write the answer here. And I'm also going to need to change my sign. So 30 minus 32, the difference there is a 2. I don't have anything else to bring down, so what I'm going to do is just write remainder 2, because the 5 doesn't go into the 2. And my answer is 76 remainder 2. So long division works the same way, it's just with polynomials. So if I had 3x squared minus 29x plus 58, and I divide that by x minus 7. Well, the key thing you always want to do is, when you're deciding what to multiply this by, is you really only want to focus on that leading term in your divisor. So x times what gives me 3x squared? Well, x times 3x. And it generally works a little easier if you line up your like terms. So x times 3x. So if I take this 3x times my x and times my minus 7, I get what I'm going to subtract out. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times minus 7 is a minus 21x. So, looking good so far. The number one thing kids forget to do is that they forget to subtract. They always know that these should cancel out, but then they forget to change the sign here. So you need to make sure you change the sign of both parts of this polynomial. So 3x squared minus 3x squared is going to be a 0. A negative 29x plus 21x is going to give me a negative 8x. I want to bring down my next term. And here we go. So now we need to think about, okay, well, x times what is going to give me this negative 8x? X times a negative 8 will give me a negative 8x. So I'm going to take my negative 8 and I'm going to multiply it by the x and the 7, and I'm going to write the answer here. So negative 8 times x is a negative 8x. Negative 8 times negative 7 is a positive 56. So again, I need to remember I want these terms to cancel out, so I need to change the sign there, and I need to change the sign here, because it's like multiplying by a negative 1. So negative 8x plus 8x is going to be a 0, and a 58 minus a 56 is going to give me a 2. X does not go into 2, so we're just going to write remainder, yikes, 2. So my answer is 3x minus 8, remainder 2. You could also use division to check for factors. So an example of this is x minus 2 a factor of x to the 5th minus 32? Now, we're going to have to set up long division, but this time it's going to be a little trickier. You may notice that we go directly from an x to the 5th to a constant. When that happens, anytime you skip an exponent, you have to put in a filler. So my first term is x to the 5th. I need a 0, x to the 4th. I need a 0, x to the 3rd. I need a 0, x squared. And I need a 0x before I can get my 32. So you need every single one of these in descending order. Now we're dividing by x minus 2. And we want to think about, okay, well, x times what gives me x to the 5th, x to the 4th. Will give me that x to the 5th. So I take my x to the 4th times my x. I get x to the 5th, distribute it to the 2, minus 2x to the 4th. So then I need to change my signs. I need to subtract this, add that. And when I combine them, the first terms cancel out, and I get a 2x to the 4th. Bring down my next term. So what do I need to multiply x by to get 2x to the 4th? And it's going to be a 2x to the 3rd. So 2x to the 3rd times an x is going to give me 2x to the 4th. 2x to the 3rd times a negative 2 is going to give me 4 minus 4x to the 3rd. So again, changing my signs so that these first terms cancel out. 2x to the 4th minus 2x to the 4th goes away. And when I add down, I get 4x to the 3rd. Bring down my term. So x goes into 4x to the 3rd. 4x squared times, and you can see if you line up your similar exponents on the first one, they start lining up really nicely in case you forget what your variables are going to be. So 4x squared times x is going to give me that 4x to the 3rd I need. 4x squared times the minus 2 is going to give me a minus 8x squared. So I want to make sure I change my signs, combine down so these cancel out, and I'm left with 8x squared. Bring down my 0x. And I need to take x times 8x squared, times 8x to get 8x squared. So I get 8x squared. The 8x times the 2 is going to give me a minus 16x. Change the sign, subtract that line, and I will get a 16x. Bring down my 32. X times 16 will give me my 16x. I'm going to put a 16 here. So taking that 16 times that binomial x minus 2, I get 16x plus 32. Nope, I lied. $16x minus 32 because it's a minus. When I combine those, I do need to change the sign. So it looked for a minute like it was going to cancel out, but when I add my 32 to my 32, I get a 64. So that means I have a remainder of 64. And the remainder is really what we want to look at. So we did our division right, but x minus 2 is not a factor because there's a remainder. Had there not been a remainder, then it would have been a factor. It's time for you to try is x minus 3 a factor of 9x to the third minus 15x squared plus 4x plus 6. I'll see you tomorrow.